I always thought I knew what love was supposed to look like. 4 years with Eliza had convinced me that patience was the key to any lasting relationship. But man, was I wrong about that. And about her. It was a crisp October evening in Portland, the kind where the air smells like wet leaves and possibility. I'd spent 3 months planning the perfect proposal, reserving the rooftop of the Nines Hotel where we'd first met at a friend's birthday party. I'd arranged for the chef to recreate the appetizers from that night, hired a string quartet to play her favorite Coldplay song, and this is the part that still makes me wince. I'd spent nearly 2 months' salary on the exact oval-cut diamond ring she'd pointed out during a casual window shopping trip downtown. "This is the one a woman deserves," she'd said that day, pressing her finger against the glass. "If you really love someone, you show it properly." So I did, or I tried to. I remember checking my pocket every 30 seconds on the elevator ride up, my palms sweating so much I was afraid I'd drop the little velvet box. The quartet was already playing when we stepped onto the rooftop. The Portland skyline glittered beneath us, and fairy lights twinkled overhead. "Marcus, what is all this?" Eliza asked, but I could tell from her expression that she knew. Her eyes darted around, taking inventory of everything. Everything. The musicians, the champagne, the small gathering of friends I'd invited to share the moment. Her smile seemed to flicker like the candles on the tables. I led her to the center of the rooftop, where I'd marked an X with tape earlier that day, the exact spot where we'd first been introduced. My friend Jason gave me a thumbs up from beside the bar. My boss Richard was there too with his wife. I'd invited colleagues, our closest friends, even her sister had flown in from Chicago. About 20 people in total, all waiting for the big moment. "Eliza," I started, dropping to one knee, "these past 4 years have been the best of my life." The speech I'd rehearsed 100 times in the mirror suddenly felt stuck in my throat. "You've challenged me to be better, to work harder, to become the man I've always wanted to be." I pulled out the box and opened it. The diamond caught the light from every angle, throwing little rainbows across her black dress. "Will you marry me?" The silence that followed lasted only seconds, but it felt like hours. I watched as something changed in her eyes, a calculation, a decision being made. "I can't," she said loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'm sorry, Marcus, but I'm just not ready for this." The quartet abruptly stopped playing mid-note. Someone gasped. I stayed frozen on one knee, the open ring box still extended toward her. "I thought you knew I wasn't there yet," she continued, her voice taking on an edge I'd heard only a few times before. Usually when she was talking about colleagues who'd been promoted ahead of her. This is too much pressure." I remember standing up slowly, my knee aching from the hard rooftop surface. "We can talk about this," I said quietly, trying to salvage not just the moment, but my dignity. "Maybe in private." "There's nothing to talk about." She took a step back. "I need space. I need time to think about what I really want." Then she turned and walked to the elevator, leaving me standing there holding a $12,000 ring and the shattered remains of what I thought was our future. Her sister ran after her, throwing an apologetic glance over her shoulder. The worst part wasn't even the public rejection. It was what came after. I drove home alone that night, expecting to find Eliza there so we could talk things through. But when I arrived at our apartment, I found half the closet empty and a note on the kitchen counter. "Staying at Sarah's. Will come by for the rest of my things tomorrow." That's it. 4 years together, and that's all I got. I barely slept. I called her repeatedly, but she didn't answer. I sent text after text, each one more desperate than the last. Around 3 a.m., I finally checked Instagram, something I rarely did, and there it was. A new post from Eliza, a selfie of her looking contemplative with a glass of wine, and the caption, "Know your worth, queen. Don't settle for less than you deserve. Hashtag self-love, know your worth, new beginnings." The comments section was already flooded with supportive messages. "You go girl, never settle. His loss. So proud of you for choosing yourself." Sarah, her best friend, had commented, "The right man will know your value without you having to tell him." It was like I'd been cast as the villain in a story I didn't even know I was part of. Like our relationship had been reimagined overnight into something toxic that she had heroically escaped. The next morning, Eliza showed up with Sarah to collect her things. She barely looked at me. "Can we please talk about this?" I asked, following her into the bedroom where she was packing up her jewelry. "There's nothing to talk about, Marcus," she said, not looking up. "I'm not ready for marriage. And honestly, the way you ambushed me in front of everyone, that was manipulative." Ambushed. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "We've talked about marriage. We've talked about kids. Last Christmas, you pointed out that ring specifically. Mentioning something isn't the same as being ready for it," she snapped. "And doing it in front of all those people? You put me in an impossible position." Sarah appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. "She doesn't owe you an explanation, Marcus. People are allowed to change their minds. After 4 years together, I think I deserve a little more than 'I'm not ready' and an Instagram post about knowing your worth," I said, my voice finally betraying the anger I was feeling. Eliza stopped packing and looked at me directly for the first time. "Maybe that's part of the problem. You think you're entitled to explanations, to my time, to my future. This is exactly why I need to step back." Entitled? The word hit me like a slap. I thought we were building a life together. I thought we were partners. "Well, I need to figure out who I am outside of this relationship," she said, zipping up her suitcase. "I've given you 4 years of my 20s. I need to make sure I'm not missing out on something better." Something better. Those words echoed in my head for weeks afterward. They took everything that fit in Eliza's car and left. The apartment felt cavernous without her things. The decorative pillows she'd insisted on buying, the expensive candles that always burned in the bathroom, the framed photos of us that had lined the hallway. She'd even taken the fancy coffee maker, though I'd been the one who paid for it. For the first week, I was a wreck. I called in sick to work for 3 days straight, something I'd never done before. I drank too much whiskey and watched reruns of shows we used to watch together. I checked her social media obsessively, torturing myself with each new post about freedom and self-discovery. Then on day 8, I woke up and felt something different. Not healing, it was too soon for that, but anger. Pure, clarifying anger. I looked around at my half-empty apartment and thought, this isn't who I am. I've never been this pathetic. That morning, I deleted all my social media accounts. Not just logged out, permanently deleted. Then I called my boss. "Richard, it's Marcus. I'm coming back tomorrow, and I want in on the Peterson project." The Peterson project was a major infrastructure upgrade that everyone at the firm wanted to work on. It meant longer hours, more responsibility, but also a potential promotion if handled well. Richard seemed surprised. I'd never been one to ask for the spotlight, but he agreed. "You sure you're up for this right now?" he asked. "I heard about what happened. Tough break." "I'm sure," I said. "I need this." That same day, I joined a gym near my office and signed up for sessions with a personal trainer. I'd never been out of shape exactly, but I'd become comfortable. Too comfortable, maybe. "What are your goals?" the trainer, a guy named Derek, asked during our first session. "I want to not recognize myself in 6 months," I told him. He nodded, not asking for elaboration. "Then let's get to work." The next few months were a blur of work, workouts, and solitude. I poured everything into the Peterson project, staying late at the office, coming in early, volunteering for the most challenging aspects of the design. At the gym, I pushed myself until my muscles screamed, then pushed a little more. At home, I replaced the furniture Eliza had picked out, painted the walls a color she'd always hated, and started cooking elaborate meals just for myself. I was rebuilding, but I was also hiding. I avoided social gatherings where I might run into mutual friends. I dodged questions about Eliza and changed the subject whenever anyone brought up relationships. I was functioning, but I wasn't really living. Then came the company holiday party in December, 2 months after the rooftop disaster. I almost didn't go, but Richard insisted. "The whole Peterson team will be there," he said. "You've been carrying half that project on your back. You deserve to celebrate a little." So I went, wearing a new suit that fit better thanks to all those hours at the gym, and tried to blend into the background near the bar. That's where Chloe found me. "You're hogging all the good standing space," she said, nudging me with her elbow. "Budge over." Chloe Morgan had joined the firm about a year earlier. She worked in the environmental impact division, and our paths crossed occasionally on projects. She was smart, direct, and had a laugh that made everyone around her smile. I'd always liked her in a distant, colleague kind of way. There's plenty of room, I said, but I moved over anyway. I heard you've been killing it on the Peterson project, she said, signaling the bartender for a drink. Richard won't shut up about your innovative approach to the drainage system. I couldn't help but laugh. Drainage systems. Sexy stuff. Hey, in our world, a good drainage system is practically pornographic. She grinned, especially one that saves the client $2 million in construction costs. We ended up talking for almost 2 hours, moving from drainage systems to our favorite Portland restaurants, to a heated debate about whether Die Hard is truly a Christmas movie. It absolutely is. Not once did she mention Eliza or ask about my personal life, which was refreshing. When the party started winding down, she glanced at her watch. I should head out. Early meeting tomorrow. She drained the last of her drink. This was fun, though. We should grab coffee sometime. Talk more about your dirty drainage fantasies. I'd like that, I said, surprised to find that I meant it. Coffee with Chloe turned into a regular thing. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we'd meet at a little place halfway between our apartments before work. She was easy to talk to, no pretense, no games. She laughed at my bad jokes and called me out when I was being too serious. She talked about her work with genuine passion and listened when I talked about mine. One Thursday in February, after we'd been doing this for about 6 weeks, I realized I'd started looking forward to our coffee meetings more than anything else in my week. I also realized I hadn't checked to see if Eliza had unblocked me on Instagram in over a month. You seem different today, Chloe said as we walked back toward the office. Different how? I don't know. Lighter? Less like you're carrying the weight of the world on those newly buff shoulders. She poked my arm teasingly. I laughed. Maybe I am. Feeling lighter, I mean. Good, she said simply. It suits you. That weekend, for the first time since the breakup, I accepted an invitation to a friend's birthday dinner. Jason, the same friend who'd given me the thumbs up on the rooftop, was turning 33, and he'd reserved a table at a new restaurant downtown. Bring someone if you want, he said when he called to make sure I was coming. No pressure, though. I almost didn't. The thought of a date felt foreign after everything with Eliza. But as I was getting ready to leave, I found myself calling Chloe. Hey, I said when she answered. Random question. My friend's having a birthday dinner tonight at Kennard. Any chance you're free and want to join? There was a pause, and for a moment I regretted asking. Then she said, What time should I meet you there? Dinner was surprisingly fun. Chloe fit seamlessly into my group of friends, trading stories and inside jokes like she'd known them for years. At one point, I caught Jason giving me an approving nod from across the table. After dinner, I walked Chloe to her car. The night was cold but clear, and downtown Portland was alive with people and lights. Thanks for inviting me, she said as we approached her parking spot. Your friends are great. They liked you too, I said. Jason texted me under the table to tell me I did good. She laughed. High praise. We reached her car, and she turned to face me. In the glow of the street lamp, I noticed how her eyes crinkled at the corners when she smiled. So, she said, was this a date? The directness of the question caught me off guard. Would that be okay if it was? More than okay. She stepped closer. I've kind of been waiting for you to figure that out. And then she kissed me, right there on the street. It wasn't earth-shattering or dramatic, just warm and real and right. When she pulled back, she was smiling. See you Tuesday for coffee? She asked. Definitely, Bob, I said, feeling like something important had just shifted into place. After that night, Chloe and I started dating officially. We took things slowly at first. Both of us had emerged from long-term relationships in the past year and were cautious about diving in too deep too quickly. But there was an ease between us that I'd never experienced before. We could talk for hours or sit in comfortable silence. We disagreed sometimes, but we talked it out instead of letting it fester. By April, we were spending most nights at each other's places. By May, we'd met each other's parents. And by June, I realized I was in love with her in a way that made what I'd felt for Eliza seem like a pale imitation. Let's go hiking this weekend, Chloe suggested one evening as we were making dinner in her kitchen. There's a trail in the Columbia River Gorge I've been wanting to try out. Sounds perfect, I said, chopping vegetables beside her own. Should we make it an overnight trip? Stay at that bed and breakfast in Hood River? Even better. She bumped her hip against mine. I'll pack the good snacks. That Saturday, we set out early, driving east along the Columbia River with the windows down and music playing. The hike was challenging, steeper than either of us had anticipated, but the views were worth it. We reached the summit around noon and found a rocky outcrop with a panoramic view of the gorge. This might be my favorite place on earth, Chloe said, sitting down and pulling water bottles from her backpack. I sat beside her, taking in the vista and the woman next to me. Her cheeks were flushed from the climb, her dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she looked completely at home in the wilderness. In that moment, I knew with absolute clarity that I wanted to spend my life with her. What? She asked, catching me staring. Nothing, I said, just thinking about how lucky I am. She leaned over and kissed me. Charmer. We ate our lunch and were preparing to head back down when Chloe suddenly stood up. Wait, she said, I have something for you. Close your eyes. I raised an eyebrow but did as she asked. I heard her rummaging in her backpack, then her footsteps as she moved in front of me. Okay, open them. I opened my eyes to find Chloe kneeling on one knee, holding a small wooden box. What are you, Marcus Anderson, she said, cutting me off. I know we haven't been together that long, and maybe this is crazy, but I've never been more certain of anything in my life. She opened the box to reveal a simple silver band. I love the way you think, the way you care about details that most people overlook, the way you make me coffee in the morning without asking. I love how you're rebuilding yourself after being knocked down, and I want to be by your side while you do it. She took a deep breath. Will you marry me? I stared at her, completely stunned. Of all the scenarios I'd imagined for this hike, this wasn't even on the list. You're proposing to me? I finally managed to say. Is that a problem? She asked, uncertainty flickering across her face for the first time. No, God, no. I pulled her to her feet and into my arms. It's perfect. You're perfect. Yes, of course I'll marry you. She slipped the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly. And then we were kissing, laughing, crying a little bit all at once. How did you know my ring size? I asked when we finally broke apart. I measured your finger while you were sleeping, she admitted. Like a creep. That's the most romantic, creepy thing I've ever heard. We hiked back down the trail, floating on cloud 9, stopping every few minutes to kiss or just look at each other and laugh with disbelief. By the time we reached the bed and breakfast in Hood River, we'd already started making plans. A small wedding in the fall, maybe at Chloe's parents' vineyard in the Willamette Valley. That evening, we posted a simple announcement on Instagram, a photo of us at the summit, my hand with the ring visible, and the caption, "She asked, I said yes, adventure begins." We turned our phones off after that and spent the evening celebrating privately. It wasn't until the next morning, over coffee in the B&B's garden, that we turned them back on and saw the explosion of congratulatory messages, and one missed call from Eliza. My stomach dropped when I saw her name on my screen. I hadn't heard from her in 8 months, not since she'd collected the last of her things from our apartment. I showed the notification to Chloe. Are you going to call her back? She asked, her voice carefully neutral. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me is curious about what she wants, but another part of me just doesn't care anymore. Chloe squeezed my hand. It's up to you, but whatever you decide, I'm here. I decided not to call Eliza back. Whatever she wanted to say, I didn't need to hear it. We drove back to Portland that afternoon and I pushed the missed call from my mind. Until my phone rang at 11:30 that night. I was already in bed, Chloe asleep beside me. I grabbed the phone quickly to silence it and saw Eliza's name on the screen again. I declined the call and put the phone on silent. A minute later, it lit up with a text. We need to talk. It's important. I stared at the message, feeling a knot form in my stomach. After a moment's hesitation, I typed back. I'm engaged now. Whatever it is, I'm sure we don't need to discuss it. The reply came immediately. Engaged? After only 6 months? Are you serious right now? A surge of anger prompted my response. Deadly serious and very happy. Please don't contact me again. I put the phone down, but it lit up once more. I'm coming over. What the hell, I muttered. I hadn't given Eliza my new address when I moved 3 months after our breakup. How did she even know where I lived? I got out of bed carefully, trying not to wake Chloe, and went into the living room to call Eliza. You're not coming over, I said as soon as she answered. How do you even know where I live? Sarah's boyfriend works with someone at your firm, she said, her voice tight. Marcus, you can't be serious about marrying this woman. You barely know her. I know everything I need to know, I said. And frankly, it's none of your business. None of my business? She laughed, a harsh sound. We were together for 4 years. You wanted to marry me 8 months ago. And you said no, very publicly, if you recall. I said I wasn't ready, she snapped. Not that I never wanted to marry you, I thought you'd wait. The pieces suddenly clicked into place. Wait for what exactly? There was a pause, and when she spoke again, her voice was smaller. For me to figure things out. To be sure you were the one. I leaned against the wall, feeling a strange mix of vindication and disgust. So you wanted me to just sit around while you, played the field? Saw if there was someone better out there? That's not, she started, but I cut her off. Actually, I don't want to know. It doesn't matter anymore. I've moved on, Eliza. You should too. This is because I hurt your ego, she said, her voice turning cold. You're rushing into marriage with the first woman who looked at you after me to prove something. Think whatever you want, I said. Just leave me alone. I ended the call and blocked her number, then stood in my dark living room, breathing heavily. I felt a hand on my shoulder and turned to find Chloe standing there in one of my t-shirts. Eliza? She asked simply. I nodded. She's not happy about our engagement. I gathered that from your side of the conversation. Chloe led me to the couch and sat beside me. Want to talk about it? I told her everything Eliza had said, and Chloe listened without interrupting. She basically admitted she was planning to come back to me if she didn't find someone better, I finished. Like I was her backup plan. Chloe took my hand, running her thumb over the engagement ring. Some people see relationships as transactions, what they can get versus what they have to give. I've never understood that. Me neither, I said, or at least I didn't think I did. But maybe with Eliza, I was doing the same thing, giving and giving, hoping that eventually she'd think I was worthy. You've never had to prove your worth to me, Chloe said quietly. I saw it the first time we really talked. I kissed her then, grateful beyond words for her presence in my life. The next morning, I had an email from Sarah, Eliza's best friend. The subject line was simply, you should know. I almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity got the better of me. The email was brief. Marcus, Eliza is devastated about your engagement. She made a mistake and she knows it. She was going to tell you last night that she wants you back. She's ready now for everything you wanted. Think carefully about what you're doing. You loved her for 4 years. Can you really say you love this new woman more after just 6 months? Sarah, I showed the email to Chloe over breakfast. Are you going to respond? She asked after reading it. No, I said. There's nothing to say. I thought that would be the end of it, but I was wrong. The following weekend, we were having dinner at a restaurant downtown when I spotted Eliza at the bar. She was alone, nursing a drink and checking her phone repeatedly. It was clearly not a coincidence. This was a restaurant she'd never shown interest in when we were together. Don't look now, I murmured to Chloe, but my ex is at the bar. Chloe, of course, immediately looked. The blonde in the green dress? That's her. She keeps glancing over here, Chloe said. Want to leave? I considered it for a moment, then shook my head. No, we're having a nice dinner. I'm not going to let her ruin it. We tried to ignore Eliza's presence, but it was impossible not to notice when she got up and headed directly for our table. Marcus, she said, her voice slightly slurred. What a coincidence. Eliza, I replied flatly. This is my fiancée, Chloe. Chloe, this is Eliza. Chloe extended her hand politely. Nice to meet you. Eliza ignored the offered hand. So you're the rebound. I prefer to think of myself as the upgrade, Chloe replied smoothly, withdrawing her hand. Eliza's face flushed. You have no idea what you're getting into. Marcus is damaged goods. He's got serious commitment issues. I nearly choked on my water. I proposed to you, remember? You're the one who said no. I said not yet, Eliza hissed. There's a difference. Not to the 20 people watching me on one knee, I said. Not to me, waiting for you to come home that night so we could talk, only to find half your things gone. A few diners at nearby tables were starting to stare. Eliza swayed slightly, grabbing the back of an empty chair for support. I made a mistake, she said, her voice breaking. I was scared. Sarah convinced me I needed to see what else was out there before settling down. I thought you'd wait for me. You expected me to just pause my life while you dated other men? I asked incredulously. I wasn't dating, she protested. I was exploring my options. Chloe made a small noise beside me, something between a laugh and a scoff. Eliza turned on her. What's so funny? Nothing, Chloe said. Just the idea that this man, this kind, brilliant, stupidly handsome man, should be kept on hold while you explored your options, as if he's some kind of backup plan and not someone's first choice. Eliza's eyes narrowed. You don't know anything about our relationship. I know enough, Chloe said simply. A server approached our table cautiously. Is everything all right here? Everything's fine, I said. My friend was just leaving. I was not, Eliza said, but the server gave her a pointed look. Ma'am, I think you might be disturbing these diners. Perhaps I can call you a cab. Eliza straightened, dignity reasserting itself. That won't be necessary. I can find my own way out. She turned back to me. This isn't over, Marcus. After she left, Chloe and I sat in stunned silence for a moment. Well, Chloe finally said, that was dramatic. I reached across the table and took her hand. I'm sorry about that. Don't be. It's not your fault. She squeezed my hand, though I am curious about one thing. What did she mean by exploring her options? I shook my head. I have no idea. Probably exactly what it sounds like. She wanted to see if she could find someone better than me. The next day at work, I received a message from a number I didn't recognize. Check your email. You deserve to know the truth. Sarah's ex. Sarah's ex-boyfriend, Chris, had briefly worked at my firm before moving to a competitor. We'd been friendly but not close. I opened my email with a sense of dread and found a message from him with several attachments. Marcus, the email read, Sarah and I broke up last week after I found out she's been helping Eliza cheat on guys for years. They had this whole system, and you were part of it. I know we're not close, but this is messed up, and you should know. I've attached screenshots of their messages about you and some spreadsheet they kept. Sorry, man. With growing disbelief, I opened the attachments. The first was a screenshot of messages between Sarah and Eliza from around the time of my proposal. Eliza, he proposed, just like we knew he would. Sarah, OMG, what did you say? Eliza, no, of course, just like we planned. You should have seen his face, though, almost felt bad. Sarah, stay strong, remember the plan. 1 year to find Mr. Right. Marcus will still be there if you don't. Eliza, he better be. I've invested too much time to lose him completely. Sarah, that's why we came up with the not ready line instead of a hard no. Keeps the door open. Eliza, exactly. And now I can have my fun while keeping him on the hook. I felt physically ill reading the exchange. The other screenshots were similar. Eliza and Sarah discussing their plan for me, laughing about how I'd wait forever because I was too invested. But the spreadsheet was the worst. Titled Eliza's Options, it contained a list of men, myself included, with ratings for income, appearance, future potential, and sexual performance. Notes in the margins detailed pros and cons for each man. Next to my name, reliable, good income, decent in bed, but too agreeable, no challenge. Backup option if nothing better materializes. I forwarded everything to Chloe with a brief message. Now we know what she meant by exploring options. Her reply came quickly. What a manipulative, calculating witch. Are you okay? I wasn't sure how to answer that. Part of me was devastated to learn that the relationship I'd valued so much had been nothing but a calculated investment for Eliza. Another part felt validated. My instincts about her after the breakup hadn't been wrong. Before I could reply to Chloe, another email arrived from Chris. There's more. Sarah is telling people at industry events that you're emotionally unstable and that your engagement is a desperate rebound. Eliza is saying Chloe pursued you while you were still together. They're trying to control the narrative. I called Chloe immediately. They're spreading rumors about us, I told her, explaining what Chris had said. That explains the weird looks I got at the Henderson project meeting yesterday, Chloe said. One of the consultants asked if I was that Chloe and then wouldn't elaborate. We decided to meet for lunch to discuss how to handle the situation. As I was leaving the office, my phone buzzed with a notification. Eliza had tagged me in an Instagram post. I hadn't used the app in months, but I still had an account. I opened it to find a throwback photo of Eliza and me from a vacation 2 years earlier, with a long caption, "Some relationships shape you forever. Even when they end, the love remains. I made a mistake walking away from this man, and I've regretted it every day since. Sometimes you don't recognize what you have until it's gone. I'm sorry, Marcus Anderson. I should have said yes. Hashtag the one who got away, second chances." The post already had dozens of sympathetic comments, many from our mutual friends expressing support for Eliza and criticizing me for moving on too quickly. By the time I reached the restaurant where Chloe was waiting, I was seething. "She's playing the victim," I said, showing Chloe the post, making it look like I'm the bad guy for not waiting around for her to finish exploring. "This is crazy," Chloe said, scrolling through the comments. "These people know you. How can they believe this version of events?" "Because it's the only version they're hearing," I replied. "And Eliza has always been good at presenting herself as the wrong party. Plus, most of them saw me get rejected on that rooftop. They probably think I'm just trying to save face." Chloe set my phone down and took my hands across the table. "So what do we do? Ignore it and rise above?" I thought about it for a moment, then shook my head. "No, I'm tired of letting her control the story. I'm tired of being the reasonable one while she manipulates everyone around us." "What are you thinking?" I squeezed her hands. "I think it's time for the truth to come out. All of it." That evening, after discussing it thoroughly with Chloe, I made my first social media post in 8 months. It was simple, a screenshot of the spreadsheet Chris had sent me with my name and rating visible, and a brief caption, "When someone treats you as an option, don't make yourself their backup plan. The truth about why I moved on." I tagged no one, but I knew word would spread. I followed it with a second post, the screenshots of Eliza and Sarah's messages about their plan for me. Then I turned off notifications, set my phone aside, and took Chloe out for ice cream. "Are you sure about this?" she asked as we sat on a bench by the waterfront, watching the sunset over the Willamette River. "I'm sure," I said. "I'm done being manipulated. I'm done letting her twist things to make herself look good while making me look pathetic." Chloe leaned her head on my shoulder. "For what it's worth, I've never thought you looked pathetic, not even when you were telling me about the proposal disaster over coffee that first time." I wrapped my arm around her. "You're the only person who made me feel like the rejection was her loss, not mine." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, finishing our ice cream and watching the sky turn from orange to deep blue. When we finally headed home, I checked my phone briefly and saw dozens of notifications, messages from friends, comments on my posts, even a few missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize. "Looks like we stirred up a hornet's nest," I said to Chloe. "We can deal with it tomorrow," she replied, taking my hand. "Tonight, let's just be us." The next morning, I woke to find my post had been shared hundreds of times. Friends I hadn't spoken to in months were messaging me with variations of, "Is this for real?" And I had no idea. Several people sent screenshots of Eliza's Instagram, which had suddenly gone private. But the most surprising message came from Jason. "Sarah's boyfriend Chris came to poker night last night and showed us everything. We've all been played, not just you. The guys and I are behind you 100%. Also, Chloe seems awesome. Don't screw this up." I showed the message to Chloe as she made coffee in the kitchen. "Well, that's one good thing to come out of this mess," she said. "Your friends know the truth now." "Yeah," I agreed, though I hate that it had to become this public spectacle. "Some people only understand public consequences," Chloe said, handing me a mug. "Eliza humiliated you publicly. Maybe it's fitting that her manipulation is being exposed the same way." Later that morning, as I was getting ready for work, my phone rang with a call from Sarah. I hesitated, then answered and put it on speaker so Chloe could hear. What the hell, Marcus? Sarah's voice was sharp with anger. You had no right to post those private messages. Private messages about how you and Eliza were manipulating me? I shot back. Sorry if I don't feel too bad about exposing that. You don't understand the context, she insisted. Eliza was confused and I was trying to help her figure things out. By creating a spreadsheet ranking men like products on Amazon? By planning to use me as a backup while she shopped around for someone better? It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Sarah? Please enlighten me. Sarah was silent for a moment. We never meant to hurt you, she finally said, her voice smaller. Eliza really did care about you. Just not enough to see me as anything more than a safe backup option, I said. Tell her to leave me alone, Sarah. I've moved on. She should too. I ended the call and turned to Chloe. I should get to work. Me too. She kissed me quickly. Dinner tonight? My place? Definitely. The fallout from my post continued throughout the day. Colleagues who had seen the drama unfold on social media gave me sympathetic looks or awkward encouragements. My phone kept buzzing with notifications until I finally silenced it completely. Around lunchtime, Richard called me into his office. I braced myself for a lecture about keeping personal drama out of the workplace. Close the door, he said when I entered. I did as instructed and sat down across from him, preparing my defense. Instead, Richard leaned forward and said, I saw what happened online. You okay? The concern in his voice caught me off guard. I'm managing, I replied. Sorry if it's causing distractions at work. That's not what I'm worried about, he said, waving a hand dismissively. Look, I've known you for 5 years now? You're one of the most level-headed people in this firm. If you felt the need to put all that out there, I figure you had a damn good reason. I appreciate that, I said, genuinely touched. And for what it's worth, he continued, my wife never liked Eliza, said she had calculating eyes. I couldn't help but laugh. Your wife is perceptive. Women usually are, he agreed, which brings me to my next point. Chloe Morgan is one of our brightest talents. You two seem good together. Don't let this Eliza business mess that up. I won't, I promised. She's the real deal. Good, he nodded decisively. Now get back to work. The Peterson project won't finish itself. As I was leaving the office that evening, my phone rang with an unknown number. Normally, I would have ignored it, but something told me to answer. Hello? Marcus? It was Eliza's sister, Catherine. Please don't hang up. Catherine, I said cautiously, what can I do for you? I saw what you posted, she said, and I wanted to say, I'm sorry, I had no idea Eliza was doing all that. You didn't know about her plan? God, no. Catherine sounded genuinely horrified. I knew she was having doubts before your proposal, but the spreadsheet, the calculated rejection? No, that's not the sister I thought I knew. I leaned against my car, unsure what to say. Catherine and I had always gotten along well during the 4 years I dated her sister. She'd been at the rooftop proposal, had looked as shocked as everyone else when Eliza said no. I feel terrible, she continued. I flew in especially for your proposal because Eliza told me you were proposing and she was going to say yes. She let me think it was going to be this beautiful moment. Wait, I said, a new piece of the puzzle clicking into place. She knew I was going to propose? Before that night? Of course she knew. She told me about it 2 weeks before it happened. Said you'd been dropping hints and she was sure it was coming. She even showed me pictures of the ring. Said you'd left the browser open on your laptop. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. All this time, I thought my proposal had caught Eliza off guard, that maybe I'd rushed her or put her on the spot. But she'd known. She'd planned her rejection in advance, had invited her sister to witness it, had prepared her Instagram post about knowing her worth before I'd even gotten down on one knee. Marcus, are you still there? Yeah, I said, my voice hollow. I'm here. Thanks for telling me, Catherine. I needed to know that. There's one more thing, she said hesitantly. Eliza's a mess right now. Your posts, everyone finding out. She tried to call me earlier, sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. I think she might do something stupid. What do you mean? I don't know exactly. She was saying things like, what's the point now and everyone hates me. I'm worried about her, Marcus. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on my shoulders despite everything. Have you called your parents? They're in Europe until next week. I'm in Chicago. I can't get to Portland until tomorrow at the earliest. What about Sarah? They had a huge fight after your posts. Sarah's blaming Eliza for everything coming out, saying she was careless with the spreadsheet or something. They're not speaking. I sighed heavily. Where is she now? At her apartment, I think. At least that's where she was when she called me. I thought for a moment. I'll call someone to check on her. Not me, that would make things worse. But someone who can make sure she's okay. Thank you, Catherine said, relief evident in her voice. And Marcus, I really am sorry about everything. You deserved better from her. You seem happy now, though. I am, I said, and realized I meant it, despite all the drama of the past few days. Take care, Catherine. After we hung up, I called Jason, who lived closest to Eliza's apartment. I need a favor, I explained, telling him about Catherine's concerns. You want me to check on the woman who publicly humiliated you and then tried to sabotage your new relationship? He asked incredulously. I know how it sounds, I said, but I'd never forgive myself if something happened to her and I could have prevented it. Jason sighed. Fine, but you owe me big time, and I'm not going alone. I'll bring Melissa. Melissa was his girlfriend, a psychiatric nurse who would know how to handle the situation better than either of us. Thank you, I said. Let me know what happens. Will do, but Marcus, this is the last thing you ever do for her, understood? After this, you're done. Agreed, I said, and meant it. I called Chloe next and explained the situation. I'm sorry, I finished. I know this is the last thing either of us wants to deal with right now. Don't apologize, she said. It's one of the things I love about you, that you still care about her well-being even after everything she did. Love? I repeated, realizing it was the first time either of us had used the word. There was a pause, then Chloe laughed softly. Yeah, love. Is that okay? More than okay, I said, smiling despite everything. I love you too, and I'll be at your place in 20 minutes. While driving to Chloe's apartment, I received a text from Jason. She's okay, drunk and feeling sorry for herself but not in danger. Melissa talked to her for a while. We left her with a friend who came over. Consider your conscience clear. I showed the message to Chloe when I arrived at her place. That's a relief, she said, pulling me into a hug. Now can we please have one evening without drama? That sounds perfect, I agreed. We cooked dinner together, opened a bottle of wine, and deliberately avoided checking our phones or discussing Eliza. Instead, we talked about work, about the upcoming weekend, about potentially adopting a dog together. It felt wonderfully normal and domestic, exactly what I needed. Later that night, as we lay in bed, Chloe propped herself up on one elbow and looked at me thoughtfully. You know what I realized today? What's that? If Eliza hadn't rejected you on that rooftop, we wouldn't be here right now. As horrible as that night was for you, it led you to me. I pulled her closer. I've thought about that too. It's strange how the worst moments of our lives can lead to the best ones. So, in a weird way, she said, tracing patterns on my chest with her finger, I'm grateful to her for being foolish enough to let you go. Her loss, I murmured, kissing the top of her head. My incredible gain. The next morning, I woke to a notification that Eliza had made a new Instagram post. Against my better judgment, I opened it. It was a simple black background with white text. I've made mistakes, hurt people I care about, manipulated situations for my own benefit. I'm not proud of who I've been, but I'm working to be better. To those I've hurt, especially I am truly sorry. Some lessons come at a high cost, and I'm paying that price now. Please respect my privacy as I take time away from social media to reflect and heal. The comments were disabled, and when I checked her profile, I saw she'd deleted all her previous posts, including the one about me being the one who got away. Progress, I guess, I muttered, showing the post to Chloe. She said skeptically. Let's see if the actions match the words. On the morning of our wedding, I stood at the front with the officiant, Jason, beside me as my best man, watching as our small gathering of family and friends took their seats in the vineyard. The string trio began to play, and everyone turned as Chloe appeared at the end of the aisle. She wore a simple white dress, her dark hair loose around her shoulders, a small bouquet of wildflowers in her hands. She looked radiant, and as our eyes met, I felt all the certainty in the world settle into my chest. She walked toward me, her father beside her, smiling that smile that had first caught my attention at the holiday party, open, genuine, without pretense. When she reached me, her father kissed her cheek and placed her hand in mine. "Hi," she whispered, her eyes bright. "Hi," I whispered back, squeezing her hand. "You're beautiful." When it came time for our vows, I took both her hands in mine and spoke from the heart. "Chloe, when we met, I was rebuilding myself from the ground up. I thought I knew what love was supposed to be, something you earn through persistence, something you prove yourself worthy of. You showed me that real love isn't about proving anything. It's about being seen clearly and accepted completely. You chose me from the beginning, not as a project or a backup plan, but as your partner. Today I choose you not just as my wife, but as my best friend, my confidant, my favorite person. I promise to choose you every day for the rest of our lives." Tears shimmered in her eyes as she spoke her vows. "Marcus, you came into my life when I least expected it, and from our first real conversation, I knew you were special. Not because you were perfect, but because you were real, honest about your struggles, your hopes, your dreams. You never tried to be anything other than who you are, and who you are is exactly who I want to spend my life with. I promise to always see you clearly, to stand by your side through whatever comes our way, and to choose you every day as my partner in all things." The officiant pronounced us husband and wife, and as we kissed, our friends and family erupted in applause. I felt Chloe's smile against my lips, and when we turned to face our guests, her hand firmly in mine, I knew with absolute certainty that this was where I was meant to be. During the reception, as we swayed together during a slow dance, Chloe leaned her head against my chest. "Happy?" she asked. "Completely," I replied, holding her close. "You?" She looked up at me, her eyes reflecting the string lights above us. "More than I ever thought possible." 6 months after our wedding, I was sorting through old files on my laptop when I came across a folder labeled Proposal Plans. I started to delete it, then stopped. It was part of the path that had led me to Chloe. Instead of erasing it, I closed the laptop and went to find my wife. That evening, as we walked our newly adopted golden retriever along the waterfront, I realized something important. Eliza's rejection hadn't broken me. It had freed me. Her no had eventually led to Chloe's yes, and that made all the difference. Some queens don't take less than they deserve, and sometimes what they deserve is exactly what they get.